us for today's AMA. We have a lot to go over today. Herman is here to talk to us about some of the developments on a strategic and technical level. I have some things to run over in terms of what's happening in the community, what's happening from a business and marketing perspective as well. Some of the things that are happening in the wider ecosystem on a higher level and also in more detail. Diego is involved in a conference, I believe, today, so he won't be able to join us, but I'll be reading out his updates, which I have some information on myself, so that should be fine as well. And of course, Marv is here to give us any details about what's happening with Cherish as it ramps up towards launch in a few short weeks. As always, we'll lead with Herman giving us a rundown of the major developments and upcoming things to look out for in the Cherry wider project. So I'll hand it over to him. He'll give you a quick rundown. Then we'll go to a few questions. I think there's been a couple of them posted. Then I'll give my own account of what's going on. And then we'll move to Marv. I'll give Diego's update. And then we'll have the quiz at the end. I think last week people appreciated that we tried to compress our AMA into a shorter time frame, because people are quite busy and they like to be able to listen to things quite in a compact way. So what we're going to do is try and keep things moving along nice and quickly today, and we'll hopefully get it done in good time. So I'm going to hand you over to Herman now, and he's going to give us his update.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Super. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. As Owen said, we do have some updates, both strategic and more operational. Over the past month or so, I focused mostly on strategic updates, how the project, the broader ecosystem, and the various companies that are helping making Cherry vision a reality are adapting to the changing dynamics, changing context, both within crypto, but more broadly within the economy, changing interest rates and so forth. I thought this week could be a good day, good AMA to move away from these topics. I think we've covered most of them thoroughly over the past month. You've experienced firsthand our evolution from our skeptical exploration phase into a greater degree of confidence, and then executing this now established plan that we are confident in within the ecosystem for our partners and within our own project. Last week was the mostly culminant of this effort, where we moved away from reorganizing essentially into executing, into making this new organization, this new reality into action. So if you've already reviewed the Track.Trader network entry of this week, you will see that this week and the upcoming weeks will be pretty much pivotal in the broader project efforts. There are some major core developments that I won't bore you with extensively. As we've announced and we've shared, we've also discussed this at some length in chats and in more long-form formats. Cherry will soon become a layer 0. Therefore, some of the logic will be delegated off-chain or in parachains, more properly. Now, these parachains will have varying features. From day one, we're planning on having a degree of zero-knowledge proof scalability via ZK snarks. This can be formulated as a layer 2 as Ethereum, or as Plasm, Astar layer 1s in the Polkadot ecosystem. We are still exploring the exact implementation, but this consideration fits in a broader, the consideration of adopting zero-knowledge proof for scalability fits in a broader push away from layer 1 into layer 0. EVM in particular is a feature that works best as its own chain, as its own runtime, and thus it will be implemented and is currently being implemented as a layer one separate to the Cherry chain mainnet, though working in parallel. We'll describe a bit more thoroughly what the interaction between relay chains and parachains is, but you can see it as functionally the same as a smart contract deployed on Ethereum, though with far greater efficiency and versatility of the smart contract. It'll be able to process its own transactions at its own limit rates with its own data structures, sort of independent of the constrictions and the limitations of the relay chain, which is also shared across the various layer ones built on top of it. In addition to this EVM compatibility parachain, we're also building as is the core core proposition of Cherry Network, and this storage module, which currently is sort of deployed on the testnet within the main runtime. We've experienced this so far. We haven't promoted it as much since we did notice some lack of efficiency, lack of scalability. We now believe that through the parachain architecture, we've identified a pretty viable means, not just for deploying it now and seeing what happens, but actually to making a sound design choice that can bring Cherry Network from the few hundred users, or Cherry storage module from a few hundred users that it has now, into the hundreds of thousands or even million, like our competitors, Filecoin, etc. That's the core updates now. If you see track.Cherry Network, there are others. We focus on some testing, further compatibility with, for example, other operating systems, in particular in relation to the storage module. We want storage providers to be as comfortable as possible with their firmware, with their operating systems, and not redo everything from scratch. These are most likely established DevOps operators just in pursuit of making their node compatible with Cherry storage. Rather, we'll seek to adapt the storage software to the various operating systems and other processes preferred by DevOps teams, cloud providers, etc. Taking that burden on to us rather than delegating over to third parties. Aside from that, there's others. I won't bore you too much with it. I'll move quickly on to ecosystem updates. There are a bunch. I won't be able to cover them all. If you have any questions about them, just ask, or here or in chat. More likely, a more elaborate answer would only be available in chat. Last week, I announced a few efforts core to Cherry Labs. Cherry Labs is Cherry Network's own ecosystem foundation / incubator / VC. I'm a leader of this effort, and we were endowed with some capital, which we deploy, as well as our pretty vast technical competencies to enlarge and enhance and promote the Cherry Network. Through this efforts, we found that some users, both technical and non-technical, needed a better way to gather information, to collect knowledge. Last week, in this context, we announced learn.cherry.network, learn.cherrylabs.org, which isn't online yet, but is being built in coordination with other projects we've funded, such as Seedling. And this will have mostly layman-oriented tutorials, guides on how to use Cherry Network in particular, but also how to interface with various aspects of blockchain, which can be quite idiosyncratic, specific to this industry, and unfamiliar to otherwise laymen's who haven't had a lot of experience in this space yet. In addition to this layman educational efforts, we're also working on uh, or on a product called Grandstead. This was sort of announced last week, perhaps a bit confusedly. Some hints to it have been made in Track.Trade Network. This is an external project, though, built in close relationship with the Cherry Labs team. Its purpose is to provide a platform where projects, benefactors, philanthropists would be able to fund projects, would be able to fund efforts. Let's say I'm Cherish. Let's say I'm a core developer of Cherish, as Marvin is. Let's say I want to solve an issue that had been identified by a community member, though we don't necessarily have bandwidth within the team currently to solve that. Now, maybe it's slow efforts. Maybe it's very particular to that operating system, that mobile device that the user who identified has reported. Therefore, rather than dedicating team time, I make a grant. I say, well, somebody fix this bug, and they'll get 100 cherry tokens, $100 from cherry tokens, whatever it is. This platform will allow that. In addition to having this benefactor end, independent people, even learning how to interact technically with Cherry Network, will be able to seek financial support and also other sorts of support, initially exclusively financial, in their either specified or unspecified pursuits. So if I, as a developer, say, well, look, I'd like to expand the Cherry Network, I'd like to expand the Cherry Core program with this feature, and the community finds that as meritable, finds that as something that should be worthy of reward, then they can issue grants in response to this proposal. This, of course, is a complement to our existing treasury proper to Cherry Network. So perhaps it could be a bit more proper of the Cherry ecosystem that doesn't have a centralized or a central, though decentralized treasury, rather than Cherry Network. All this, we'll try to explain this a bit further. I'm aware I've been going on and on about this. I personally find this quite exciting because it does allow a concerted, decentralized, though coordinated effort and development of the Cherry Network, the Cherry ecosystem, and in pursuit of a broader Cherry vision, not just for those who are familiar with it and those who already sold within it and who've invested, though, and therefore have an interest in its growth, but also others. So it's also, in our mind, a means for expanding our user base, expanding our developer base. There are some other announcements, perhaps some that are a bit more relevant than Grandstead, which is a bit more functional. Unigate is doing pretty well. I think we'll have one person in the team, maybe not next week. I'm aware that next week we have an event, so it may not be appropriate then, but perhaps the next week after that. We'll have them join the AMA. We'll have them tell us about Unigate, what they've been up to so far, why they've postponed the way they did, why they made the choices which we're all aware of, and what the direction forward is. I'm personally quite excited about Unigate. I've shared my enthusiasm in the past. I think it's probably one of the few projects within the Cherry ecosystem that I consider a flagship project. We've invested in it heavily, and I do believe that the return will be pretty great, both for Cherry Labs as an investment group, Cherry Network as its sort of patron, its base platform, but also the broader Cherry ecosystem and the Cherry community. Unigate, in case you need reminders, is a decentralized crypto payment gateway that accepts cross-chain transactions, so not just Bitcoin, Ethereum, and so forth, and it does so in a decentralized manner, so no KYC, easy integration, and very, very low fees. There have been mentions of various developments within the Unigate sphere. Most of these have happened behind closed doors. They've been going on with a private or restricted group of alpha tester first and then beta tester later. They currently have a handful of merchants currently using Unigate. They've been learning as much as possible from them, and I think within a very short order, they'd be able to expand what they've currently offered to a select few merchants to perhaps more merchants, perhaps all merchants without any need of registration, so it can be a seamless integration, and certainly expand what the feature set that they currently provide is. Am I still there? Hello? Okay, I'm sorry. I've been going on. I was wondering about. Okay. I think Marvin will share a bit more information about Cherish. We have shifted some attention on Cherish as a incubator point of view. We have, I'm going to try how much I can disclose about this, but we are getting closer by the day to a not just a viable product, which is somewhat uncommon within the blockchain sphere. People just make promises and then fail to identify what the limitations of decentralized software is. I think what we're about to publish, and this is in the order of weeks, so don't get too excited. It's not days, it's not hours. Will be comparable, if not competitive, to a mainstream social network within the sphere, within the scope of what Cherish is. So, and not comparable to Twitter, to Facebook, that are these vast data guzzlers where the interaction with the art is minimal, but rather with something like Patreon and something like and other projects like this, where the interaction between the user and the artist pages is a bit more curated, is a bit more valuable, and it's less volume, rather a deeper interaction in those terms. I don't want to say too much about Cherish. Probably Marvin will have some more to share about that. But yeah, the timeline is tightening. I'm quite excited about that too, in addition to Unigates. There are some other projects. I don't know if you have any questions about that. I can address that later. I feel I've been talking for a very long time, but I'll now pass it on to the rest of the team. Thank you.
Thank you, Herman. That was very informative and interesting. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, if you have time, that have been posed by the community. So just let me dig them out now. Okay. So Jerem asked, I'm staking coins on the mainnet. If I add more, will the lock time start again in 28 days? I think that's, yeah, pretty straightforward. So
I do believe this answer is listed in our staking or nomination knowledge base. If it's not, it's been asked before, so I should add it. The answer to this is very, very simple. There is no lock or staking lock 28 days at all. The 28 days applies for unlocking. So if you add things, as soon as you get added, as soon as the epoch concludes, so if you stake it at the 59th minute of the current epoch, the next minute your stake will be enabled, and you'll start nominating one of the 5 or more than one of the 5 validators, and immediately you'll start earning rewards. You'll start earning rewards not just on what you had previously, plus at some later date on the amount you've added, but of the whole amount, both the amount that you've had earlier and the amount you've added. The 28 days applies for when from the moment you click unstake of whatever amount. So if you unstake, let's say 10% of your tokens, this means that for the next 28 days, these 10% of your tokens will be sort of pending in the ether, and then at the 28th day, you'll get them back. During these 28 days, these 10% tokens will not be staking.
Thank you, Herman. Another question was posed regarding the hiring freeze and unfreeze. and specifically what kind of roles we're trying to fill with most urgency and what kind of strategic direction that our hiring is taking at the moment. If there's anything interesting to be said in that regard.
I think while I wouldn't, again, use this medium for diving into specifics, I'll be happy to answer this if the questioner pursues in chat. The answer is pretty much in line with what I've shared in the past AMAs, in the past diaries. We are focusing on quality over quantity. Again, this is not an obvious decision. The way it applies to the way we hire is rather than trying to expand the team in excess of our current capabilities and then adjusting and then selecting among those new hires who are perhaps a bit more junior, a bit less experienced, those who will continue to work within the project, rather select or apply a further selection on the get-go when we hire them. So hire a bit more senior folk, people who are a bit more experienced with the topics that they be tackling, and this can range both from business and technical aspects. So pursue that strategy more. So rather than hiring more junior people in this spaces, more senior people, and be more targeted and deliberate about that. If you want a quick answer about what areas we're hiring, we're really hiring for both business and tech indiscriminately. We do always have a greater need for tech, mostly because Cherry isn't really driven by hype. We find our value to be in the actual product and capabilities that we're building technically. But in addition to this, which is the core, and of course, something that I hold dear in my heart, we also need proper salesmen, proper operators who can manage these projects and get them in the hands of people, so also business.
Thank you, Herman. Yep. I think that's pretty much going to cover that question. So if anyone has, I can't recall who asked that question, but if they want to know more details, then I'm sure that they can ask you in the chat itself. Okay, Herman, that was great. Thank you very much. You addressed a lot of the questions that people had been asking or just wondering about over the past week as well. So that's great as well. I'm going to just go over some of the updates that I wanted to give, many of which tie into things that Herman mentioned. He was talking about the kind of learn initiative that we're putting into practice at the moment. It might sound like a side project of sorts, but it's not. We have some of our top guys looking at creating really important and really useful content for the wider crypto community. And it's a form of, as well, you might call it a form of inbound marketing of sorts, that we have quite a lot of expertise within our project. We're going to deploy that expertise to creating these authoritative and important knowledge resources that anybody can use, and in that process we'll achieve a degree of interest and traffic to the Cherry online ecosystem, but also we will present ourselves as being the experts on a broad range of topics within Web3, DeFi, blockchain, cryptography, etc. So it's a very worthwhile and very appropriate measure to take, and we're actually putting quite a lot of resources into it. So it might seem, as I mentioned, as a more marginal initiative, but it is actually quite important, and it's we're quite optimistic about how it's going to go. We have our initial release of articles and resources. Basically, we're just finalizing them at the moment. I think that we can possibly publish in the next couple of days. That's my hope. But then again, there's always a lot of technical and other considerations that might pop up as roadblocks in the near future. So we'll see. But certainly within the next few days, I hope to have something that will be ready to release. In terms of other releases from the business side, I was waiting for more details about what's going on to put them into the newsletter. So we'll summarize a lot of what has been discussed today in the newsletter, as well as other things, and that will probably go out later today, or probably tomorrow morning. Aside from that, of course, as Herman mentioned, the event will take place next Tuesday in Café de Doffer in the Negenstraatjes on Rundstraat in Amsterdam. It's a really, really cool place. I'm really glad that we were able to get this space, because it has been used for a long time. I think going back to like 2015 or 16, around the time that I first moved to Amsterdam. It was then being used more and more by because there's quite a few tech shops and startups in the vicinity on that west central part of Amsterdam, and there's always been a few meetups that would go on there. You get some really bright minds and some really passionate people in this place. It's just a bar and restaurant, really nice place, really nice food, of course, but it's a meeting hub for people interested in all manner of tech in the greater Amsterdam, in the entire Dutch region. They have a really cool meetup. Anybody who's living in Amsterdam or based around there who's interested in general tech should go along to the first on the first Thursday of each month. They have the Hackers and Founders event. So we're basically doing it in the same place, and it's going to be very fun. I can announce we have merchandise to give out at the event, which is great. The merchandise is, I think it's going to be a bag, a t-shirt, and pens, which is very cool. The t-shirts are really nice. This kind of links to the next point that I want to make, is that we will announce the winners of the merchandising competition later today. We had some really awesome entries, and a lot of people spent some serious time on and effort and thought and creativity on their entries. What we had to do was, unfortunately, some of the entries were too imaginative, if that's possible. They were too creative, and on a more pragmatic basis, we have to go to a printer, and we have to go to a merchandiser and say, hey, we want to put all these things in this, and then they'll say, well, we don't have this notebook, or we don't have this frying pan, we don't have this t-shirt, or if we have the t-shirt, then you have to use these gradients, etc., etc. So, as I've mentioned to most of the winners already, we have watered down your designs a little bit, but you'll still be rewarded with the finished article itself, and you'll also be rewarded with the prize, the cash prize. I'm going to announce that later on today. We were waiting to see what actually came out the other end, and Marvin in Belgium received the merchandise today. It was delivered today, so that's great. Everybody who goes to the event is going to get some merch. We will be finding ways to give out the merch and stuff over the next few weeks as well. The t-shirts themselves look really, really cool. I can't wait to wear one. They're kind of understated. A lot of tech merchandise just looks like it's just really kind of geeky stuff, and it just looks like it looks like it's from a really really bad warehouse uniform catalog. Ours is not like that. It actually looks cool. You look cool if you're in the bar or on the beach wearing this stuff. So that's it. That's important. It actually looks good. And as I mentioned, we'll be announcing the winners of that merchandise competition later today. We are going to be giving some updates next week with regards to our marketing strategy. I did give updates about a month ago as to how we're approaching things, given the market turmoil. As of now, our previous strategy of kind of containing ourselves in terms of what we want to, spend our budget on, to be reasonable and to be somewhat pessimistic. That has paid off because we've managed to kind of circle the wagons and ride out the kind of downturn in a very good way. So now we're going to turn our attention to a more optimistic marketing drive, which will kick into gear in the next week or so. It will also involve a lot of the ecosystem projects, and there's going to be a lot of interesting things happening. We also have community media initiatives that you don't know about, which are going to be kicking off soon. We basically have very trusted community members who will be who have approached us and discussed with us about making media content, really good media content. These people are professionals, and we're really enthusiastic about kicking that off and just being able to empower the community as much as possible to spread and to evangelize the Cherry vision and tell people what Cherry is all about. So that's going to be kicking off soon. There's also the what else did I want to address? Internally, as Herman mentioned, over the past few weeks, we've been concerned about making things more efficient on our side internally. You guys don't have much visibility of this, but it has worked quite well. We've taken the last couple of weeks to think about how we want to approach our communications and PR, how we want to approach our internal operations, all these things. After the mainnet launch, it was a good opportunity to do this, to take stock and make sure that all these things are working as well as they could be. So we've optimized that a bit. I can probably talk about that next week or maybe the week after. I'm not sure how the AMA situation is going to work next week, because we might do it during the event, we might not. I'm not sure. With regards to the event, I forgot to mention, if you know anybody in the greater region of Amsterdam, or anybody who want to come along, who has any interest in tech, specifically Web3, then tell them to come. It's very easy to sign up. It's just chair.to/Amsterdam -meetup. Just sign up. It's free. Come along. You'll get a nice t-shirt out of it, and you'll get the opportunity to talk. We're going to talk about general things a lot, and not just the actual general things, not just the Cherry ecosystem. I think we're going to probably, myself and Marv might give a quick but substantive 10-minute kind of speech talk thing about the pitfalls and opportunities involved in launching an initiative or project within the crypto or Web3 space. I think that would be a good little speech. We could give talk about some of the things that we found. But yeah, just sign up and share the link around, please, because we want, the more the merrier. I think we have quite a few signups already, but there's still capacity in the event for people to join. I'm not going to talk too much more. I think that we have to, before we do the quiz and before Marv talks, we might have to do a very brief technical break of about 10 or 20 seconds, because I think that Marv has to do something with the call conferencing that we're using at the moment. Is that true, Marv?
Yes. We'll have to. Yes, we'll take a quick break and be right back. About 20 seconds.
Okay. Yeah. It'll only be a few seconds though. So wait there, guys, and we'll be back in 2 seconds. Okay, we're back. As I was saying, those are the main things that I wanted to cover. You can ask me more questions. I've had a few DMs people with some thoughtful questions about where the project is going on the business side, things about partnerships and how Cherry Labs is going to work and what Cherry Labs hopes to do and the capacity and kind of brief that Cherry Labs has. All these interesting questions you can ask me in DM if you like. Just drop me a line. It's no problem. Or ask in the main chat if you like. With regards to the chats and stuff, I just want to say I have a different approach to things. I think that it's better. A lot of people who were basically breaking all the rules all the time, and I asked them very nicely to stop, had been removed from the groups. And then after a couple of weeks or a few days even, they come back and they're like, hey, I realized I shouldn't have been doing these things. I shouldn't have been saying this, that, and the other. So then I would say, okay, yeah, we don't want to remove people from groups. It's boring. It's not a good use of our time. And, it's just pretty juvenile to have to be able to do that. So I let people back in. But what we're going to do now is if people keep breaking the rules, we're just going to give them like a timeout of a day or like a week or something. And then we're just going to say, hey, you just can't keep doing this. And that way people will have time to just kind of realize that this is not what we want. The rules are very simple. You're allowed to say skeptical things. You're allowed to do this, that, and the other. You're allowed to, talk about other projects. You're allowed to criticize us in many ways. You're allowed to, do all these things. But you're not allowed to say, hey, the price is going to, the price of the whole crypto market is going to go to zero. You can't say that. Well, you can if you want, but I'll just say, hey, please, that's footing. Please don't do that. Some people just do this kind of thing every day. A lot of people have started to kind of wrap FUD in questions like, hey, when will such and such a thing happen? Because it hasn't happened yet, even though we've already done it. So anyway, just to clarify to people, the approach from now on is going to be to, aside from removing people permanently, we're just going to give them temporary timeouts. And aside from that, on the community end, we want to expand the ambassador program. We're also going to finally launch the intern initiative in the next 24 hours. I've been working on it. But if you apply for the ambassador program, or if you're in the ambassador program, we are going to both bring more people in, and we're going to restructure things at the same time over the next couple of days. So by Friday, we'll know what the score is there. The ambassador program has been hugely beneficial so far. So I'm looking forward to making it even better. And if you haven't applied, then I think it's chair.to/ambassador. And then you can apply there. So go ahead. Anyway, I've been talking way too long. I'm very sorry about that, guys. I would like Marv to give his update, then I'll tell you what's happening in Seedling, and then we'll move on to the quiz, which is the most fun part, of course.
All right. Hello, everybody. Yes. All right. So what's happening with Cherish? Well, there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes other than preparing for our launch or public launch. But I'll give you guys a quick run through of some things that are going on. Another person has been hired to focus on specifically Cherish, so that's good in the back end, taking pressure off of some of the other devs. So that will be hugely beneficial, and we'll see the fruits of that in the near future. Then on the back end, we are improving various processes to ensure that the platform has optimal performance and supports without problems high user traffic. As Herman said, all these things need to be integrated with each other, and we need to be able to find the right ways to do that. So we're working hard on the back ends to make sure that Cherish is stable when launched and can compete with other platforms. And then on the legal and administrative side, we're still in dialogue with banks and payment gateways to make sure that people will always be able to get paid no matter what content they post, and we don't get blacklisted, because not all countries and not all banks will be as appreciative of all the content that is posted. But since we want to fulfill the spirit of crypto, People need to be able to post what they want unfettered. So we're making sure that that is still a possibility. And then still some marketing things going forward that will be coming out around launch of the platform, maybe a little bit before, some publications and other stuff. And I'm working on a digital event for you guys as well, just before launch or around the event time. So that should all be looked forward to. That should be all for Cherish. And I'll hand it back over to Eoghan, who will talk about Seedling. Yes.
Thank you, Marvin. Very exciting stuff happening at Cherish at the moment, so that's great to hear. Okay, so as I mentioned, Diego unfortunately wasn't able to be with us today. So what we'll do is I'll just run through some of the things that have been happening. I have kind of visibility on some of these things. So if anyone has any questions, I could probably answer the questions myself. But here we go. So let me see. Okay, yeah. So as myself and Diego explained before, the launchpad space has been more rattled than anywhere else in crypto over the past few weeks, few months even, because, you know, things are bad enough for the major platforms, but, you know, nobody wants to restart a new one at the moment, obviously, because there's even more uncertainty inherent with starting the project. So launchpads are hit even harder. We've reactivated in the past week our outreach efforts and our discussions and negotiations with projects. So I think we've talked to probably like 20 or 30 in the past week. We're closing 2 at the moment. We kind of have verbal agreement with them, and we're just ironing out the contractual details. So that's quite optimistic. That means that Seedling holders will have a couple of projects in the very near future, and then it'll just be pushing forward with that from now on, hopefully. We're also going to start giving more in-depth analysis of the projects that are listing on Seedling. So we'll have these kind of an analysis document that we'll just give out. Seedling are also one of the projects that have partnered with Cherry Labs for the Learn initiative. So as you'll see in the coming days, I hope, we'll have experts from Seedling will be contributing to the learn.cherrylabs.org initiative, and you'll be able to just view all the Launchpad related content in one place. And the same will be true for Cherish and stuff like that. What else do we have? Oh yeah, so this is kind of my fault that this hasn't been done quicker, but I have a couple of edits that I need to make to the deck that myself, but mainly Paul and Diego have been working on. So there'll be a new pitch deck for people to share around and read about. That's going to be very cool, telling you all about Seedling. And yeah, I think Diego will give more in-depth updates later today or tomorrow or in the next couple of days in the Seedling channel itself. So so far this AMA has probably, due to, you know, it's probably my fault, but we've kind of gone over time maybe compared to what we wanted to do. So I think I'm going to leave it at that. As always, any other questions can just be put through the chat and we'll probably get to them. We get to almost all questions anyway. I'm going to leave. I think we're going to wrap it up now, and then the questions for the AMA quiz. All quiz winners have been paid to date. So the next 3 AMA quiz winners can expect their prizes in the coming days for the quiz that's about to happen. John is going to take care of that. John and Marvin are anyway. So I think we wrap it up here, don't we, Marv?
Yeah, sounds good. Let's do that.
All right. For anybody who is attending on Tuesday in Amsterdam, ik zie je straks. Tot straks. And myself and Marv are going to be there, and other team members. So that's going to be really cool. And for everybody else, any questions, as always, drop them in the chat and we'll try and get to them. See you later, guys. Thanks for joining.